The Tiger Sport 800 test was a pretty difficult one. I don't mean the fact that it is raining in Germany since weeks. I should have been at the global launch in Portugal in January, but I sat on the toilet at the Frankfurt airport with diarrhea. We made a new plan to test it in April, but another journalist crashed the press bike. Well, and now 8 months later, I finally got the Triumph Tiger Sport 800 to test it, but it didn't convince me. I'm very sorry, and welcome to the original. And just to file this bike into the right category, I think it's a crossover bike. So the direct competitors would be the BMW F900 XR and the Yamaha Tracer 9. I don't think the Ducati Multistrada V2 is a direct competitor just because of the size of the front wheel. So it's a little bit a different purpose. So the engine of the bike is technically a brand new one. I think the engine is still influenced by the learnings from the Moto 2 engines. Though if you compare it from the outside, it looks different to the one from the 300 RS. And it's somehow a mixture between the 300 RS engine and the one of the Tiger Sport 660 engine. And the Trident and the Tiger Sport 660 share the same manual with this one. So yeah, it's basically a complete new engine, but typical Triumph style. It's a 798cc inline triple with a bore and stroke of 78 by 55.7 millimeters. That's 2.3 millimeter more stroke than the street triple. The compression ratio is the same. It's 13.25 to 1, but the output is a bit reduced. So we got 150 horsepower here, but with 3 newton meters more torque, totaling in 83 newton meters. Peak torque kicks in 1000 RPMs earlier than on a 300 RS, thanks to the longer stroke. Sounds decent? Well, it is. It's actually more than that. So I really love the Streety for this engine, but this one has a little bit more low power grunt. So it pulls out the twisties a little bit better, but it still revs pretty high and it likes to revs and it still has this linear power output, and which is very controllable. So that's the good part of the engine. And the easiest comparison, if it has more torque, is if you try to power wheelie it. It's almost not possible on a 300 RS. This one would lift the front wheel very easy if there was no TC. Yeah, well, you can turn that off. It still doesn't pull like a twin, but there's more than enough torque to ride it lazy without constant gear shifts. Throttle response, as always with Triumph, is spot on. No dead zones, and it pulls nicely from around 3000 RPM, gets a bit stronger after 7000, and it starts to vibrating slightly above 8500, but still rests cleanly into the limiter. It's arguably the better engine for the twisties and backcountry roads, just because of the more torque it delivers from the get-go. And yeah, it still likes to rev. You have 3 riding modes. It's Sport, Road, and Rain. Sport has the most direct throttle response, but with always with Triumph, as I said, throttle response is awesome, so you don't really need rain and road mode. I rode home in pouring rain, still was in sport mode, so it's actually fine. And as soon as it's dry, you can turn the traction control off. You actually don't need that. You have to be completely numb to not feel when the wheel wants to spin out. So it's still no torque monster though, and there are no dramatic now it kicks in moments. It just revs up quickly and delivers steady power. Even on the highway, it was more than enough for cruising comfortably at 150 to 160 kilometers per hour. And out of all bikes I tested, including the Speed Triple, the Kawasaki Z900, Honda Hornet, and even the Africa Twin, this one probably gave me the highest average speed just because it was so comfortable to ride fast. And speaking of comfort, sound is one big part of that too. Well, we are quite restricted in Germany regarding the noise levels, and as a rider, you don't hear much of the motorcycle. You have that raw sound somewhere hidden, but it's very silent, to be honest. But overall, the engine is a really well-made package. So it's the inline 3-cylinder. You have this revving engine, but with more low power torque. You have this really steady linear power output. It's very manageable, very easy to control. It's very nice to ride on the highway. So it's an overall very well built package. And if you're not going faster than, I don't know, like 120 kilometers per hour on twisty roads, it has more power and torque than you need. So this is the part which was great about the motorbike. And on paper, the geometry looks promising. It's a short trail, relatively compact wheelbase, wide handlebars, and overall weighs 214 kilograms with an 18.6 liter tank. Compared to the competition, it's the shortest, the lightest, the steepest, and, in terms of geometry, the most aggressive or sporty. First downside, the brakes are frankly bad. The J21 calipers are radially mounted on the fork. There are braided steel lines, and the master cylinder is probably from Nissin, but it's just not a good combo. The master cylinder is vague, and the calipers don't help either. You need a lot of hand force. One finger braking won't get you anywhere near the ABS threshold. Modulation is tricky, and overall braking performance is generally poor. Sorry, but this has to be said. And the rear brake, it might well be from a Ducati because it's just as mushy. This is honestly the first Triumph where I think they really messed up the braking department. The dampers are made by Showa, 41mm upside down forks featuring separate damping adjustment and 150mm of travel. Preload on the rear shock can be adjusted via handle wheel. The shock is directly mounted without a linkage. Also with 150mm of travel, but otherwise non-adjustable. But here's what's missing, and it's the Sport from Tiger Sport. If you see it as a touring bike, okay, the setup works because it does soak up bumps nicely, but under sporty riding, both front and rear start bouncing and wallowing. To sum this up, the suspension is just too soft. And hey, before you call me a Triumph hater, because I'm really not, you should check out the video I made about the Speed Triple 1200 RS, which is, I guess, the best bike I've ever ridden. Well, it's very stable on the highway when you drive around 140, 160 kilometers per hour. And the top speed, I managed 232 kilometers on the dashboard. Officially, top speed is 219 kilometers per hour. But once you cross the 200 mark, it starts waving and wobbling. And you can even see this on the video clips. And dear Triumph lovers, if you're watching, I love Triumph bikes, but I'm not done yet, and I want to stay honest. Handling wise, it initially feels super nimble, great leverage from the bars, but I'm blaming the not so fresh Michelin Road 5 tires here. The bike drops into corners weirdly, almost awkwardly, requiring noticeably counter pressure to keep it stable. This is especially apparent at low speeds around 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. It runs a 180/55 rear tire, but it's really the front end that wants to tuck. And this did not inspire confidence. You can get used to it, and maybe you just put on some Dunlop Sport Smarts MK4s and this would fix it. So I'm not fully blaming Triumph for this one. And the complete opposite, despite those low speed quirks, I was able to do super tight circles, basically on full lock right from the start. That's something I definitely can't do on every bike, so props for that. But again, tight corners up to 40 kilometers per hour, it's a rough experience. None of that super stable Triumph feeling in mid-corner, plus if you drive a little faster, like 80 to 100 kilometers per hour, that bike doesn't turn in anymore. You have to force it into the corner, it doesn't want to stay there, and if you hit just a small bump while leaned over, the whole bike shakes and wobbles. But I think I blame the tires for this one once more. So whenever I feel like a bike is not performing as it should, I call a friend of mine, his name is Michael, he owns the Street Triple. So I use his Street Triple to just basically set my feelings to zero, because Street Triple is just an awesome bike regarding the suspension. So I'm leveled again. And afterwards I asked him, because he's 1 meter 90 centimeter tall, he weighs around 120 kilograms. And I asked him what he thinks about the suspension of the bike, and he was shocked, because he was dragging like the side stand and the foot pegs, and he was shocked how wobbly this bike actually is. From the ergonomic side, let's just call it fine. It's a crossover bike, and I'm not the target audience. The seating is super comfortable, very well integrated. You sit on the bike and instantly feel at ease. It even feels physically small, very narrow at the waist, and I actually like that. but the knee angle is seemingly designed for people with artificial joints. To me, the foot pegs are about 10 cm too far forward and 5 cm too low for sporty riding. Also, the seat is too much integrated into the bike for aggressive riding. For reference, I'm about 6 foot and Micha is about 6.3. Maybe it's just not meant for canyon carving, but with a name like Tiger Sport, I expected something like this. So, suspension verdict, maybe I expected too much because I really love the suspensions and chassis of the Speed and Street Triple. They are the best in their class, and I kind of expected this one to be like the best in the crossover class, but it's just too soft, it's too wobbly, you can't adjust the rear, so you have to live with it. And maybe if you put on like Stylema calipers, a better master cylinder, different tires, and Öhlins TTX 36 in the rear, this would make a really awesome bike. But for now, for what it is, it's not awesome. It's still okay, but it's not Triumph awesome. Well, the Tiger Sport 800 comes, of course, with 6-speed sequential gearbox, and you got a quick shifter and a blipper on board. Triumphs tend to gear the triples on the taller side, and the Tiger Sport shares its user manual with the Trident 660, which already hints at the bike's intended purpose. First gear runs out at theoretically 80 km per hour, second at 113 km per hour, and the third at 148 km per hour. Top speed on paper is 233 km per hour, though in practice it won't quite hit the limiter in 6. The gear spacing is nicely even, tightening slightly toward the top, a classic road-focused setup, no overdrive. That's a good thing, it suits the engines perfectly, not too short, not too tall, really well done. But I've gotta say, and I feel a bit sad about this, the shift lever travel is just too long. It doesn't feel sharp or precise, more like a mid-range commuter spec. The clutch is cable operated, no false neutrals, no strange noises, no missed shifts. Like the Speedy, it requires a little bit more input, so no lazy shifting, which brings us to the electronics. I do complain about Triumph's electronics often, so it won't be different here. But we start with the good part. It has a 6-axis IMU, which means the traction control and the ABS is sensitive to lean angle. So in full lean, you can go on the brakes and it just stops. You won't crash here. And as mentioned, you have 3 riding modes, so sport, road, and rain. But you don't need rain and road, just put in sport and you're absolutely fine because the engine is so controllable and manageable from its linear power output. Now also, it would be technically possible to separate traction control and wheelie control. Triumph decided not to. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing. Again, I refer to my Speedy video for context. But here it is. The bike wants to lift the front wheel slightly in first gear, nothing crazy, but the traction control cuts in so abrupt, I legit thought I was going to headbutt the handlebars. So if you want to do a wheelie, you have to give up cornering safety. That's not ideal. The display itself is a mixed bag. The upper part is fixed, the lower portion is scrollable. Not a bad idea, especially since all key data is accessible quickly via the bottom part. Better than on the 3D actually. But readability of the top portion isn't always great, especially with the sun behind you, and I think you can see that in the videos. You can only access the main menu while the bike is in neutral, and from there you can adjust basics like the clock, disable TC, and so on. Turn-by-turn navigation is on board, but to be honest, and I say this with love, you don't need to reinvent the wheels. The Speedy Stash would have done the job just fine. Overall electronics is fine. 6-axis IMU is a thing to have, that's good. You can turn the traction control off because it's really annoying. I even feel like when you're giving it a full twist of throttle, it kind of interferes too often. So I like to ride it without traction control, and it's absolutely fine to do so. Overall, again, electronics, Triumph, kind of a mixed bag. So, touring side, let's start on the positive part, and this is an 18.5 liter fuel tank. It gives you a range about 300 kilometers, which I tested, which seems to be fine and doable. So consumption is about 5.7 liters per 100 kilometers, and this is including high-speed Autobahn Rampage. There are 4 available color options, but let's be honest, if Cosmic Yellow is on the table, that's the one to go for. One of the best motorcycle colors ever, period. Service intervals are great, once a year or every 16,000 kilometers with valve clearance checks at 32,000 kilometers, that's good. Also, you got an X-ring chain instead of an O-ring, that's another win. There's an integrated luggage system available, it works and it's fine. The plastic hinges on the bottom feel a bit budget, but the cases are lockable, don't wobble, and close securely without a tension strap. The price, 709 in black, or you add 149 euros if you want the top lids color match to the bike. And no, there can't be a bike review about a Triumph without mentioning the build quality, because I think Triumph nails top notch about the build quality. Considering this bike, it does not completely fulfill my wishes I have for Triumph. So the windscreen, it just wouldn't stay up. It's supposed to be easily adjustable with one hand, and I'm guessing a test rider before me just broke it, but it kept dropping down on its own. In the low position, the screen relieves wind pressure up to around your solar plexus, and in the high position, only your head and upper shoulders are exposed. Width-wise, it gives excellent wind protection overall. Paint and decals are okay, the Tiger Sport logo on the fairing isn't clear-coated, but the tank decals are. And this big hole in the front fairing, it doesn't look great and air flows right through it. But hey, at least pre-silencers is nicely black-coated. The engine mount bolts, yeah, kinda cheap, it's Japan spec hardware. And the panel gap between the passenger seat and the tail section, well, it's great if you want to stash a cocktail sausage in there, not so great visually. So it's a bit disappointing when you are used to the Triumph standards. Overall, it's still good build quality, it's well made, but it's not these top-notch Triumph build quality. So, conclusion of the bike. Well, I think my expectations were just too high. So the engine is fine. It's very linear. It's controllable. It has low rev grunt, not as grunty as a V2, for example, but it's okay and it's more than you can actually use. Engine is fine. The chassis and suspension is like where the problems really start, and I think it's just not finished yet. It feels like the first drop of the bike, and well, now the bike is here, now we can test it, now we can see what the consumer is going to say, but it's not finished and it's not as precise, it's not as rideable as other Triumph's bike like the Speed Triple or the Street Triple. It's comfortable for touring, so if you just plan touring and canyon carving, like full throttle canyon carving is not your style of riding, you might just be fine. Still, it feels wobbly, it feels soft. It's not a Triumph for me, suspension-wise. And when you look at this bike in the Streetie, you just pay $1,000 more for the Street Triple, and you get all the good stuff, like the Brembo Stylimas, MCS Master Cylinder, you get the Öhlins rear shock. You get all the good stuff from the Street Triple just with $1,000 more. I know that they can't go low with the price, because then they would be too close to the Tiger Sport 660. But as it is, it just feels like this bike is made for a little bit older people, and they normally have a little bit more money. So it feels like the, I don't know, crossover cash cow, where you just get money for nothing. I mean, that's harsh. It's not completely correct price, I think. If you want to keep the price, you just should get up the build quality a little bit more. So I hope no one is disappointed. I don't want to anger anyone. I just want to do my honest bike reviews. And I think everything I said to you, I could show you in the video footage. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you saw the 2 other videos in English. Otherwise, check out my German channel. There you have 500 videos to click through. Thank you for watching, and see you the next time.